Let's take a quick left turn here. And let's go to Western North Carolina. All right. This is the second large story that you helped me understand better what was going on there. Now, when I was there for 3.5 weeks, and I was working with an organization called Savage Freedoms, and they are a nonprofit volunteer group, actually led by a retired Green Beret guy, Adam Smith. And while I was there, I saw a tremendous amount of activity from elements of 18th Airborne Corps, both 82nd and 101st. In fact, the general, Donahue, actually arrived one day while I was there. The Black Hawks came in, and he was, or Apache, whatever they were. You know, I'm not a military guy, so I can't identify the helicopters. But nevertheless, he comes in with all of his, regalia. And there were also embedded with this volunteer organization a significant number of National Guard from North Carolina. And then we had Chinooks flying in from Oklahoma National Guard. The North Carolina Guard doesn't have Chinooks, so they were coming in to help do the heavy lifting up into the hills and supplying people food and other needs up there. And then all of a sudden, one day they disappeared. The 18th Airborne was gone. After my interviewing the actual, she was a Major Baez. She was the public affairs officer for the 18th Airborne, and she was bragging about having 1,500 of their boots on the ground there. To which I said, "Well, that's cool, but why is there not 15,000 here?" Because I knew what the numbers were that as they've been deployed in other major disasters around the country, not just in our country, but also Haiti, Puerto Rico, Indonesia, and elsewhere. And sometimes the numbers were vast. And then the National Guard suddenly goes home one day. And we see a posted letter from their commander in North Carolina thanking them for their service. Enjoy the holidays. Right. Enjoy your family. And they're gone. And of course, I get on the phone with their PAO. Verified, confirmed. Right. All of them. Suddenly, we went from a very, very fractional, minimal deployment there in Western North Carolina. I think the total over the entire few weeks that they were there was about 6,000, but the most ever there at one time was, I think its greatest number of deployment was 3,150, both active duty and National Guard. As by way of comparison, Katrina, 60,000 National Guard alone. And as I said earlier, I had a FEMA spokesman tell me, and this is a guy who lives in Florida, has worked all of the hurricane disasters along the Gulf Coast, the East Coast, all the way up into the Carolina coast. And when he came up to the mountains, he said to me, and I quote, "This is the worst disaster I have ever seen times 10. Yet what we saw deployment of the military was a tenth or less." What happened, Casey?
Right.
What happened?
It has to be that the governor wasn't that interested, and because he's the key. He unlocks the federal government. So the 18th Airborne Corps is showing up. That would be unusual, active Army, but it was an extreme disaster. And they're close. They're at Fort Liberty nearby. They've got a lot of assets. But remember, the 18th Airborne Corps is the forced entry force for the United States. Mm-hmm. They've got a ready battalion. They've got a ready brigade, ready to go within somewhere around 18 hours anywhere in the world. And when they come off of that rotation, they're going into training or leave or something, right? So if you're going to pull a brigade from the 82nd and send it over there, you either took their training time to get ready to be the forced entry force, or you took their time, which their family, to be on vacation, right? And there's options. So there's other options. So you do that if you have to. 18th Airborne Corps has resources as well, but they're on the same kind of string. And those options are in the National Guard, which is a wonderful outfit. They've got 3 engineer brigades very close to that disaster. One in Tennessee, one in South Carolina, and another one in Georgia.
Well, the Guard actually has, the North Carolina Guard itself has 3 battalions
of engineers.
Of just engineers there in North Carolina.
Right. And then these guys don't normally get a lot of training time because it's expensive. Running dozers and graders and dump trucks and doing stuff that's useful. They look for things. They may be helping in a state park or something, but this is a viable, training exercise for them. And to make it a training exercise the federal government pays for, the governor's got to go through his channels to request federal resources and aid. That request would go to the president ultimately through FEMA. The president approves it. Direction comes to Department of the Army, which then directs Army North, part of Northcom.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the resources and here's the money, right? And this is now a huge training opportunity for the Guard, but it's a huge benefit to the community because these guys build roads through anything. So they've got the equipment to put in bridges, roads, pipelines, electricity. Behind them comes the Army Corps of Engineers that can bring the contractors when they're spun up and ultimately relieve the Guard. That all should have been going on, and to the extent they can't find contractors, it should still be going on. Now, the guy that would have helped me put that together, just like we got ready for COVID, Guard and Reserve again, he's not there. The Biden administration removed that position. There is no position to advocate for this sort of work and to orchestrate it in the manpower world, which is where it always was. And so even if they wanted to do it, the voice isn't there. The ability to coordinate and orchestrate and understand what can be done is not there anymore.
This was, we're not just talking about the disaster that happened up in the hills with the mountain people, but Asheville itself. I mean, this is a serious tourist destination. It's a first world city, and they did not have potable water for weeks.
Right.
But the Army could have relieved that, and what they have these reverse osmosis.
Well, they've got rope use units. I mean, when the Army's in the field, our tooth to tail ratio right now is about 1 killer for every 8 supporters. Mm-hmm. In World War I, it was more like 1 to 4. Yeah. Well, we can go anywhere in the world to support ourselves, right? You don't have water, we'll drill the wells, the engineers. Okay, the water's coming up, it's not great. We're going to put it through these big processing units to clean it up. Okay, now I got to get it to the troops. Okay, well, pipeline to Blivitz to troops.
We were only 2 weeks ago that FEMA was bragging about having delivered 14 homes to the disaster area.
That's ridiculous. We got kits, the Crested Eagle kit. I did nuclear accident response in case we ever had a problem west of Mississippi. You can fly in a whole city. The Air Force is experts at doing that. In it comes, it's a tent city with everything you need. Here comes the engineer battalion that does prime power. They can light up 72,000 homes and electrify them. And you get to get going. And now, bring in the contractors later and put in the permanent solution. Where the hell's the governor? Where the hell is use of his resources and mutual aid from the nearby states and the federal money that comes to help pay for all that?
Well, here's what we know so far, is that by the state's own estimates, it's $60 billion worth of damage to private and public infrastructure.
Right.
All right, $60 billion.
Right.
We know that the governor was doing a dog and pony show with Biden just a couple of weeks ago, asking for $25 billion. Right. This was as the last of the National Guard troops were going home.
Yeah.
And as the winter's moving in and snow is starting to fall and people are still living in tents and other really dilapidated, unheated properties that they're trying to, it's their home, it's their land, it's multi-generational in so many cases. They don't want to leave. They don't want to be relocated by the government to somewhere else, wherever that somewhere else might be. Why would the governor not ask Biden for the military assets that are available? Because one thing about active duty is you don't have to go raise money for their paychecks.
Right.
You do have to do that with the National Guard.
Right.
Why wouldn't he ask for that, just to bring an immediate
We're busy
relief?
paying for the retirement fund of people over in Ukraine. That's a priority. Why wouldn't he? I don't know. It was an election coming on, I think. And my guess is that's kind of a red area.
It is.
How do they vote? I don't know. Did somebody come set up a voting place, or could I vote absentee? And where do I drop my mail? My guess is there's no mail. I mean, these are all things the Army knows how to do and the Guard could have done for them, right, to make it easy.
Right.
And so here comes FEMA. They give them the standard $700 check. Well, where's the bank? And what am I going to do with the check?
Right.
There's no mail. There's no cash. There's no Amazon. Amazon's not coming up here because you can't. There's no road.
Right.
Right. I mean, it's all fundamentally. This is the kind of environment an Army operates in, and can turn it into something where you can actually operate. That's what Army engineers do. They're great at it. Where are they? It has to be nobody asked and nobody pushed the right buttons, or when they were pushing buttons, there was too much pushback from the White House.
So VP-elect J.D. Vance was just there a couple of days ago, and he promised the people of Western North Carolina that they would not be forgotten. But is it too late for the Army to show up, or for the Guard to show up?
The Guard can always come. You know, they're in the community. They're local.
Right.
They can always come.
But they cannot act without the governor sending them. Is that correct?
They can act without, well, the governor can send them, but he can send them on the state's dime if he needs federal help because it's expensive, right?
Right.
And that's what FEMA's for, and that's what this legislation's for, that enables FEMA to do this kind of work. There's federal money, and so the state's going to ask for federal money to help offset the cost of the Guard. Now, the Army routinely does that, like forest fires, medevacs, right? A medevac exercise for a Black Hawk medical unit is training, so the Army will provide money for that. There's provisions to do that under Title 10 and Title 32. This is a huge training opportunity for the engineers. Let's spin them up. Let's get them better at what they do while we're helping Americans get back to their lives.
And that was the most confounding aspect of this. Is I actually was interviewing an engineer, and he is in fact a bridge builder for the National Guard up there, and he was devastated that they were not being used. I mean, his skills were not being used, nor were those 3 battalions that he works with being used. All right, quick bonus question. We're almost done here. And this is the one that everybody's been waiting on, which we've been working on myself for 3.5 or almost 4 years now, and now Joe Hanneman and I are working